He had it all: wealth, power, and a love story that seemed perfect. But on his wedding day, a shocking twist changed everything. A missing guest, a series of mysterious letters, and a decision no one saw coming. The millionaire's life spiraled into a web of questions and danger, leaving everyone wondering, what really happened? Where did she go? And what was she hiding? Stay tuned as the story takes you to the edge of secrets and revelations. Let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ethan Carter was not just any man. At 35 years old, he had built a fortune through his tech company, making him one of the youngest millionaires in the country. He seemed to have everything: a big house, fast cars, and more money than he could spend. But there was one thing he still wanted: to find true love. When Ethan met Heather, he thought she was the one. She was kind, smart, and made him laugh in a way no one else could. They got engaged quickly, planning a grand wedding that everyone would remember. The invitations were sent, the flowers ordered, and the cake was tall enough to reach the ceiling. Everything seemed perfect. But deep down, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about one person: his ex-girlfriend, Lauren. Lauren had been his first love. Even though they had broken up years ago, she still had a special place in his heart. When he and Heather decided to invite Lauren to the wedding, Heather thought it was Ethan's way of showing that he was over the past. Ethan, however, had other feelings he kept to himself. On the big day, the sun was shining and guests filled the grand hall. But as Ethan scanned the room, his heart sank. Lauren wasn't there. He checked his phone, hoping to see a message, but there was nothing. The ceremony was about to begin, but Ethan couldn't focus. He kept glancing at the doors, waiting for Lauren to walk in. Minutes turned into hours, and it became clear that she wasn't coming. Ethan felt a knot in his chest. Suddenly, he stood up and said something that left everyone in the room frozen. Ethan's words echoed through the grand hall, silencing the chatter and laughter of the crowd. The guests exchanged confused glances, wondering what had come over the usually composed millionaire. Heather's face turned pale as she stared at Ethan, her hands trembling ever so slightly. Without another word, Ethan walked out of the room, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. The weight of his emotions pressed down on him as he hurried past his family and friends. Outside, the warm breeze and the gentle rustle of leaves offered no comfort. His mind was a whirlwind, swirling with questions he didn't have answers to. Why hadn't Lauren come? Did she receive the invitation? Or was she trying to send him a message? Ethan pulled his phone out of his pocket, staring at Lauren's name in his contacts. He wanted to call her, to demand an explanation, but his pride held him back. Instead, he decided to do something no one expected. He canceled the wedding. He didn't care how much money had been spent or how many people were left disappointed. He felt like he was chasing something that wasn't real, a life with Heather that he wasn't sure he wanted. But canceling the wedding was only the beginning. Ethan knew he couldn't just walk away without understanding why Lauren hadn't come. Deep inside, he felt like her absence was a clue to something bigger, something he had overlooked for far too long. He told himself he had to find her, no matter what it took. Ethan returned to his mansion, the towering walls and vast rooms feeling emptier than ever. The expensive decorations for the canceled wedding were still in place, mocking him with their unused splendor. He walked past the neatly arranged flowers, the stacked plates of untouched food, and the orchestra that had played soft melodies earlier. They had stopped now, leaving the air heavy with silence. Ethan sat down at his desk, his mind racing with thoughts. He opened his laptop and started searching for Lauren online. She wasn't someone who liked to post much about her life, but Ethan was determined to find any trace of her. He checked her social media accounts, her work profile, and even old photos from when they were together. Hours passed, but there was no clue, nothing that could explain why she hadn't come to the wedding. Frustrated, Ethan leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. He couldn't give up now. He decided to contact some of Lauren's friends, hoping they might know where she was. He sent messages to people he hadn't spoken to in years, asking about her and whether they had seen her lately. Finally, one reply caught his attention. It was from a mutual friend named Alex, who mentioned something strange. Alex said that Lauren had been acting distant recently, avoiding invitations and disappearing for days at a time. He even hinted that Lauren might have been hiding something, a secret that could explain why she hadn't come to the wedding. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. What secret could Lauren have, and how was it connected to him? He realized that his search was far from over, and whatever Lauren was hiding might change everything he thought he knew about her and himself. Ethan felt like he was chasing shadows. The more he tried to understand Lauren's absence, the more questions it raised. He couldn't get Alex's words out of his head. A secret? What could she possibly be hiding? And why would it keep her away from his wedding? Ethan decided he needed to speak with Alex directly. Text messages weren't enough. He wanted answers face to face. The next morning, Ethan drove to Alex's apartment. The city seemed unusually quiet as he navigated through the streets, the hum of his car engine the only sound filling his thoughts. When he reached Alex's building, Ethan felt a strange mixture of hope and anxiety. He hoped Alex would have the answers he needed, but he also feared what those answers might reveal. Alex greeted Ethan with a cautious smile, clearly surprised to see him. He invited Ethan inside, and after a brief exchange of pleasantries, Ethan wasted no time getting to the point. He asked Alex if he knew why Lauren had been acting distant and avoiding social events. Alex hesitated, his expression shifting from surprise to unease. He admitted that he had noticed Lauren withdrawing from her usual circles, but there was something more, something he wasn't sure Ethan was ready to hear. After a moment of silence, Alex finally spoke. He revealed that Lauren had been receiving anonymous letters for the past few months. The letters were unsettling, filled with cryptic messages and warnings. Lauren hadn't told anyone except Alex, and she seemed genuinely frightened. Alex added that she had been spending most of her time trying to figure out who was behind the letters and what they meant. Ethan's heart sank. Was Lauren in danger? And why hadn't she come to him for help? He couldn't shake the feeling that the letters were connected to him in some way. Ethan asked Alex if he could see one of the letters, but Alex explained that Lauren had refused to share them. Even with him, she was adamant about solving the mystery on her own. Ethan's mind raced. He knew he couldn't let this go. Lauren was more than an ex-girlfriend. She was someone who had once meant everything to him. He decided he had to find her and get to the bottom of the mystery, no matter what it took. Ethan couldn't shake the urgency now burning in his chest. Lauren was clearly in trouble, and it was no longer just about understanding why she had missed the wedding. It was about protecting her, whether she wanted his help or not. Ethan left Alex's apartment more determined than ever. As he drove back home, his mind started piecing together fragments of memories. He thought back to the times Lauren had shared her fears about being in the public eye. She had always been private, avoiding attention despite Ethan's growing success. Could this have made her a target? Was someone trying to use her past relationship with him to threaten her? Ethan decided to contact a private investigator. He had the resources and connections to find out the truth quickly. By the next morning, the investigator, a sharp and experienced woman named Olivia Price, had taken the case. Olivia assured Ethan she would discreetly start looking into Lauren's recent activities, the letters, and anyone who might have sent them. While Olivia worked on the investigation, Ethan couldn't sit idle. He revisited old emails and messages from Lauren, hoping to find a clue he might have missed. Then he remembered something. Months ago, during a casual conversation, Lauren had mentioned spending time in a quiet town a few hours away from the city. She had said it was her escape, a place where she could find peace. Ethan wondered if she might have gone there to distance herself from the chaos. Without wasting time, Ethan decided to check for himself. He packed a small bag and set out on the road, his heart racing as the city skyline faded in his rearview mirror. The drive was long, and the rural landscape stretched endlessly before him. As he neared the town, a sense of unease settled over him. He didn't know what he would find, but something deep inside urged him forward. When Ethan reached the town, it was just as Lauren had described, peaceful, almost untouched by time. He parked his car and began asking around, showing a photo of Lauren to a few shopkeepers and locals. Some shook their heads, saying they hadn't seen her. Others seemed hesitant to answer, their eyes darting away as if they knew something they didn't want to share. Then one elderly woman sitting on the porch of a small cafe spoke up. She said she had seen someone who looked like Lauren, staying at an old inn on the outskirts of town. Ethan's heart pounded. He thanked the woman and immediately headed in the direction she had pointed. Ethan approached the old inn, its weathered wooden facade blending into the surrounding countryside. The place seemed almost forgotten by time, with vines climbing its walls and the faint creak of wind brushing against its sign. Ethan felt a rush of anticipation mixed with nervousness as he pushed open the heavy door. Inside, the inn had an air of quiet solitude. The cozy furnishings and the faint scent of aged wood seemed to welcome travelers seeking peace. Ethan walked up to the counter and asked the innkeeper, a stern-looking man, if Lauren was staying there. The innkeeper hesitated before nodding slightly. He revealed that someone matching her description had checked in a few weeks ago, but had requested privacy and rarely left her room. Ethan's heart raced as he thanked the innkeeper and climbed the creaky staircase to the second floor. He found himself standing in front of the room the innkeeper had pointed out, his hand hovering over the door. He considered knocking but decided against it, unsure of how Lauren might react to seeing him. Instead, he waited in the dimly lit hallway, gathering his thoughts. Moments later, the door opened slightly, and Ethan caught a glimpse of Lauren. She looked different, tired and wary, yet still carrying the quiet strength he had always admired. When their eyes met, Lauren froze, her expression unreadable. Ethan held his breath, waiting for some sign of recognition or emotion from her. But before he could say a word, Lauren closed the door quietly, leaving Ethan standing there, more uncertain than ever. Ethan stood motionless in the quiet hallway, his mind racing as he stared at Lauren's closed door. The brief glimpse of her had stirred emotions he thought he had buried long ago. Confusion, concern, and an undeniable urge to protect her. But Lauren's reaction had left him uncertain. Was she afraid to see him? Or was there something deeper she couldn't, or wouldn't, share? Determined not to leave without answers, Ethan waited outside her door. Minutes passed, but Lauren didn't reopen it. He could hear faint sounds from inside, papers rustling, the creak of floorboards, but nothing to suggest she would welcome him in. He sighed and stepped back, retreating to the inn's lobby to give her space. Ethan found himself pacing by the large windows, the view of the serene countryside doing little to calm his restless thoughts. He knew he had to tread carefully. Lauren's silence wasn't just about their past relationship. It was tied to something much larger, something haunting her. Ethan couldn't ignore the weight of Alex's warning, the mysterious letters. He wondered if Lauren had brought them with her, hiding them in this quiet town to escape whoever had sent them. Meanwhile, Olivia Price, the private investigator, called him with a breakthrough. She had traced the origin of one of the letters to a small printing shop in the city, a place that had been hired anonymously. Olivia explained that she was piecing together clues about the sender, but her investigation was leading her toward a tangled web of connections that might involve more than just Lauren's past. Ethan listened intently, feeling the tension mount. He realized he was at the edge of something bigger than he had imagined. Lauren wasn't just avoiding the wedding. She was caught in a storm of secrets and shadows. Ethan made a promise to himself to find out the truth, no matter how far it took him. Ethan hung up the phone, Olivia's words replaying in his mind. A tangled web of connections? What could that possibly mean, and how deep did this mystery go? He knew he couldn't wait idly for answers. Lauren's silence behind that door upstairs, combined with Olivia's findings, drove him forward with a sense of urgency he couldn't ignore. Ethan returned to the innkeeper and asked about the room Lauren was staying in. He wanted to know if there was any unusual activity. Had she received visitors? Left suddenly? The innkeeper hesitated, glancing at Ethan with an expression that seemed to carry more than just concern. He admitted that Lauren had been receiving envelopes, always delivered late at night, by a courier who refused to speak or explain the delivery. Ethan's pulse quickened. These letters, could they be the same ones Alex had mentioned? He asked the innkeeper if he knew anything about the courier's identity, but the man shook his head, saying the figure always kept their face hidden beneath a hooded jacket. Ethan felt his frustration mounting. He couldn't shake the feeling that Lauren wasn't just avoiding him. She was guarding herself against something far darker. Determined to learn more, Ethan walked back upstairs to her door. This time he noticed faint scratching sounds inside. They weren't loud, but enough to signal activity within the room. Ethan tapped softly against the door, hoping Lauren would respond. Minutes passed, but she didn't open it or acknowledge his knock. Ethan considered his options carefully. He didn't want to invade her privacy, but leaving without answers wasn't something he could accept. Finally, he slipped a note under the door. In it, he wrote, "Lauren, I know you're scared, but I want to help. I won't leave until I understand what's happening. Please let me in." He stepped back and waited, his gaze fixed on the faint light seeping through the bottom of her door. Lauren didn't respond to Ethan's note immediately, and the silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Ethan waited in the hallway, his mind clouded with fear and frustration. Just as he was about to leave, he heard the soft creak of the door opening behind him. He turned quickly, and there she was, standing in the doorway, clutching a stack of papers tightly in her hands. Her face was pale, her eyes weary, but there was something else, a flicker of determination. Without saying a word, Lauren handed the stack to Ethan, her trembling hands brushing his as she did. Ethan looked down at the papers and realized they were the letters, every single one that had been haunting her for months. He flipped through them, reading the cryptic warnings, threats, and strange symbols that filled each page. One letter stood out. It wasn't like the others. It was detailed, almost like a puzzle, referencing events from Ethan's past and Lauren's connection to him. Ethan's heart sank as he began to understand the truth. The letters weren't random threats. They were meant to manipulate Lauren, to isolate her, and ultimately to get to him. Someone was targeting him through her, using her love for privacy and her fear of the spotlight against her. Lauren finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She told Ethan she hadn't come to the wedding because she was terrified. She didn't know who was behind the letters or what they wanted, but she had felt that showing up would put everyone at risk. Ethan's chest tightened as he listened. It wasn't just about their history, it was about something much more dangerous. Ethan made a decision. He told Lauren that they needed to face this together. She had been carrying this burden alone for too long, and he wouldn't let her continue to suffer in silence. He contacted Olivia and shared the letters, hoping her investigative skills could uncover the truth. As they waited for answers, Ethan and Lauren began piecing together clues from the letters themselves, finding hidden patterns, symbols, and references that seemed to point to someone who knew them both intimately. Days turned into weeks, and the mystery unraveled slowly but surely. Each clue led them closer to the mastermind behind the letters, a former business associate of Ethan's, someone he had once trusted but had betrayed him in the past. The associate had become obsessed with ruining Ethan's life, using Lauren as a pawn in his twisted game. In the end, Ethan and Lauren confronted the truth together, exposing the associate's actions and putting an end to the threats. But the experience changed them both. For Lauren, it was a reminder of her own strength and resilience. For Ethan, it was a wake-up call. He realized how much he had taken her for granted and how deeply he cared for her. Though the ordeal was over, their journey together wasn't. They had faced the darkness and come out stronger, but what came next was up to them. As they stood together side by side, Ethan and Lauren knew that their story wasn't ending.